Today I'm going to show you how to make a sculpture of a hen out of cotton fibers using just simple materials that you might have around the house. You can make an ornament that looks like maybe it's been around for 100 years or so. So come along with me and let's make some spun cotton hens. So these are the materials you're going to need for your spun cotton hen today. Some of these are optional, but the basics are you might want to start with a piece of cardboard for the form of your hen. Then we're going to you can use a little template, or you can just cut out, freehand it and cut out whatever shape you want. Then we're going to use tissue or foil to fill out the base of our hen. We need glue, like school glue or PVA glue, cotton of course, cotton balls or quilt batting. One thing I forgot to put in here is my masking tape. That's pretty essential. There's my mix of the school glue, and then I water it down. You might want some pipe cleaners or wire. You can use those for the form or for the hangers or for a beak. You might want string or bits of lace or fabric for using as you finish your hen. You might want a toothpick if you wanted to make legs for a little hen figurine. You'd want probably a darning needle to poke the hole for the hanger for your ornament. Scissors and a hot glue gun are handy, but you definitely don't need a hot glue gun. You can do everything with school glue. I have my watercolor paints, my acrylic craft paints, then I have some mica flakes and crushed mica. That's just kind of a cherry on top, definitely not something you need, but you can finish them that way. Mod Podge and coffee, so that's for aging it or sealing it when you're done. And that's everything. Hi friends, it's Rosanna. We're here today for our spun cotton make-along video. We're going to do a hen today. So here's one of them I made beforehand. She's a big girl for me. I don't usually make my animals quite that big. And then here's one that was more kind of in the scale that I usually make things. She's more a miniature size. I'm going to make mostly spun cotton ornaments, meaning like they'll be nice for hanging, but I also thought I'd show you how to make a figurine that you could have a base on and set on your table or counter or wherever. Obviously, anywhere you set things, you can set this little hen. So we're going to kind of go through the things you'll need. I'll try to do a little intro where I show all the materials. I did make a template for my hens so that I would be kind of in the same range usually for size. I don't usually make templates, but I thought a few of you might want me to share that if you don't feel comfortable making your own shape for your hens. And then today I'm going to be covering cardboard with foil, and also I'm going to show you how to use tissue to kind of plump out your hen shape. I call that the armature. So I've got my masking tape ready, my school glue, water, and then my little bowl where I mix it together to make it pretty watery. I mean, obviously there's some glue at the bottom, but it's pretty watery. Then my cotton balls, just regular cotton balls like you find in the drugstore. And that's older quilt batting. Quilt batting is a little easier to work with than cotton balls. And then I've got some wire for hangers. This is like thread coated wire that I take the thread coating off of, and I just use the balled wire for my hangers because I like the look of it. And then I've just got other things you might use. Someone used twist ties for the strawberries, and so I thought that was a good idea for something people would have at home. There's twist ties, and I'm showing you, you might want some little bits, scraps of fabric if you want to use a fabric piece for your hanger or give your hen a shawl. So just kind of look around and think about what you might want to use for your hen if you want to add fabric details or fabric hangers. You might need pipe cleaners, but I think you can get along without a pipe cleaner if you don't have one. Or chenille coated wire, I think is the actual fancy name for those. Paintbrush, a darning needle. You might want a little felt or thread. That's just some red felt if you want to make the comb for your hen with felt. So I don't know, there's lots of ways you can go with your hen, so I just tried to think of some different things you could do. So I'm just going to trace out my template on a piece of old corrugated cardboard. And I'll cut it out. I'll try to link like a PDF with this video in case you're just feeling, I don't know, anxious about drawing your own hen shape. I think you could probably do it yourself, but just in case someone wants that. Just sitting here with Pumpkin Cat on my lap, if you can hear him purring. It's early on New Year's morning, and I'm trying to work on these voiceovers while the house is quiet, fairly quiet. So there's one shape I did. That's kind of like, I would say that shape is sort of like those hen cookie cutters, if you have any of those older tin cookie cutters where the hen has that kind of blobby shape and no feet. It's just a little easier to do than trying to give her skinny little legs and toes and all of that. So that's kind of what I was using for inspiration for that. Then I'm just going to wrap it with tissue. I like to use things when I'm bulking out my armatures. I like to use things that can't be recycled. You know, you just would rather not put in the trash. I know this is just a small amount of tissue. I have bags and bags of tissue that I've saved from, you know, packages over the years, and obviously I use it for sending and packaging things, but this is a way to use a little bit of it and not have to use some new material for whatever you're making. And then I just start taping that tissue on. Now, I do think, and I've found over the last couple of years as I've been doing spun cotton, that it's good to get your armature or your base shape pretty close to how you want it to look when it's finished. It just, and I've sped it up here so that you don't have to watch me wrap tape for like 15 minutes. But it does take a while to get your base nice, shaped nicely, fairly smooth, and pretty close to the shape and size you want it to be when you're finished. But if you do that, you're going to save yourself a lot of time doing layers and layers of spun cotton, or doing layers that are probably too thick and don't dry very well and get lumpier. So just spend a little time with the base of whatever you're making, with your hen in this case, and really get her looking like a hen to start, unless you're going for a more abstract type of thing. Don't bite me, pumpkin. But yeah, get her looking the way you want her to look. And then you'll just have to do 1 or 2 fairly thin layers of cotton over the top, and it just will save you time and fretting over things. So you can see she pretty much looks like a hen at this point. It's not just like a blob and you're like, oh, I'll add the head later, which I mean, on a hen, adding a head isn't as big a deal as if you were making, you know, a pig or a donkey or something with a great big head. Hens have a little pin head compared to most animals, so you could add your head afterwards on your hen, but in general, it's better to just kind of start with how you want her. I did show you how to add wings here if you want her wings to kind of, instead of just be all one shape folded against her body, these will actually stick out. So I just take little bits of foil and tape them on, and tape the back, and just make sure they're on pretty securely so that you can fuss around with them and they aren't going to just fall off on you. So that one's got little wings, and I'm going to plump out her breast a little bit. So, I mean, I don't get things right the first time, especially these hens fought me. Everything fought me for this video. I don't even know I'm sitting here doing this voiceover for the first little segment of video I've shot, and I am not sure if I'm gonna get it all pulled together in a video for you, but let's hope. I guess if you were watching this on YouTube, I managed it. So there's my little kind of simple hen shapes, and I'm just showing you I've got several. I'm gonna do a batch of, like, I don't know if I had 6 or 7 or 8. I can't. It got crazy with hens yesterday. My New Year's Eve was crazy. I made speckled hens all day. I couldn't see anything at the end of the night, which was 9:30. I went to bed at 9:30. I don't stay up to see the new year because I figure I'm going to have a year with this new year. I don't really care if I get every second in on the first night. So anyway, here I'm showing you I'm going to show you how to make the armature and base for a little freestanding figurine. And I don't know why I do this with the twist tie, because I don't even end up using. I was showing you how you could use a twist tie for this base, and then I ended up using the twist tie for like a hanger or something, and I used wire for my figurine, so who knows. I was all over the place with these hens. I changed my mind so many times and repainted things and reshaped things. I cut heads off and put them back on, and so it was a wild time with my chickens here. So here I'm eventually going to show you how to start this little base. If I can fight that wire. Okay, here we go. I just take a length of wire, not very long because this is a small hen. I'm unwrapping it. If you don't have, I mean, I showed you the twist tie. That would be a good length for the legs of a little hen. You just need it to be long enough that you can clump some foil around it for the body, and then you need enough left that you can kind of shape a little base at the bottom. So a twist tie works well for the size of hen that I make. But if you, I mean, I don't know if you, I was thinking you could use little toothpick legs. That would work. Just use, cut a toothpick in half, or use 2 whole toothpicks and, wrap one side with your foil and stick the other side in some more foil, or if you have a little bit of paper clay or something like that for your base, you could try that, or take a couple little rounds of cardboard, glue those together, poke holes in them, and then stick the little toothpicks in and glue them in. So there's different things you could use for legs besides wire. Probably you can think of other things. You're all probably mostly smarter than I am, so I'm just the one dumb enough to put these videos out here. Okay, so here's my little foil hen shape. You can't see that I'm working around. That wire that I use is so thin, and it's kind of a dark color, you can't see it, but the little length of wire legs are poking out the bottom. And then I just do what I do with a pumpkin. You're being very naughty. You're being very naughty. I'm just gonna wrap it with tape, and then I will make a little base for it. And I was kind of dumb because sometimes when I have the camera on, I don't do things the way I would if it wasn't on. I don't think as well with the camera on, even though no one's actually watching me, obviously, as I'm filming it. Pumpkin, you're being very naughty. Please don't scratch me. Even though no one's actually watching me, it's like someone's watching me, so I get like nervous and don't do things right. So anyway, here I'm going to do a little base for this hen, and I just wrap masking tape around the wire, but what I should have done is tape a little piece of cardboard to the wire, and then wrap it with masking tape, which is what I end up doing later, but I didn't actually. I think I did film it, but then I ran out of space on my phone and took a bunch of videos off and took that video off, and then I didn't want to transfer everything back onto my phone. So this was kind of a runaround here with getting all the little segments of film together for this. So I didn't end up having all the parts that I originally filmed, but I think there's enough to give you an idea. Okay, so I sped it up a lot here so that you could just quickly watch how I finish plumping out this hen. And this one I didn't use a template, obviously. I just squashed foil into a shape, and then you can see I decided, oh, it was kind of too skinny, so I added some more foil to the side to kind of plump the wings out a little bit. And then I'm just going to start wrapping the little ends of wire that are poking out with a bit of masking tape. I'm not picky about how my base, like the shape of my base. I don't care if it's kind of odd and not circular or whatever, but I mean, obviously it'll be easier if you just cut the shape of cardboard you want and then wrap it, tape the wire to the cardboard and then wrap it with masking tape. But there, I trimmed it up, and there she'll sit pretty well even without the cardboard. Okay, so time for the cotton and glue part, everybody's favorite. This is, sorry to switch my camera angle on you. I wasn't gonna use this footage, and then I somehow lost the new footage I shot. So you're stuck with this original, which actually I don't know, you have to tell me if you prefer the camera this way. I usually shoot it like backwards, kind of in selfie mode. That way I can look at the camera and make sure my hands are in the shot and everything. This is actually the right way, so that, you know, it'll zoom in on things better. But when I do it this way, obviously I can't look at my phone and make sure that I'm actually in the shot. You wouldn't think it'd be hard to keep your hands in kind of one spot, but I tend to migrate my hands out of the shot, I find. So anyway, you gotta put up with my camera being flipped around for this little segment, but hopefully I feel like you can see my hands maybe a little better this way. It's just harder for me to actually take the video this way, but So all we have is our really watery school glue, and then I just tear off my bits of cotton batting or cotton balls so that I don't have to do that with sticky fingers. And then I just paint a little bit of the watery glue onto my shape and start laying the pieces of cotton over the top. And that's all you do. You're just going to be coating and coating. I am going to try to talk through this segment at its regular speed, even though I'm not sure I have a lot to say, but I'm going to keep it at its regular speed just because this is the actual part that shows how to do the cotton, and I feel like that might be the trickiest part for people. I don't know what, you'll have to tell me if that was the part that you struggle with the most, or if it's making the armature, or if painting is harder. I don't know. I feel like you just kind of have to get used to working with the cotton and glue, and keeping it watery enough that you don't just get to be a sticky mess with it and have to quit while you're kind of halfway through with your shape. So I'm just coating and shaping with the brush. Hopefully most of you have a brush to use. Doing it with your fingers is possible. You just need to keep your fingers really wet. And if I was doing it without a brush, I would probably kind of dip the cotton pieces into the water, which I sometimes do anyway if I have kind of a bigger piece and want to get it wet quickly. But I might kind of dip them partially, and you don't want them sopping wet, but you can partially dip them in the water, and then that will help you shape them with your fingers if you don't have a brush to use. But I guess I might be being stupid because I don't know how you're gonna paint your figurines without a brush. I always try to think, about people who maybe don't have a huge crafting art supply, but I suppose this isn't something you could do very easily without some sort of paintbrush. So anyway, if you want to have fun and do it with your fingers, do that, but the brush is gonna help you a lot. So here I'm just shaping, and I was gonna talk about the reason I don't use like actual spun cotton. Spun cotton is like it's like this very smooth, it looks almost like, if you're familiar with wool roving, spun cotton looks a little bit like merino wool. It's smoother than that even, but it's like these silky long fibers, and I had a friend share it with me when I was first starting to do spun cotton. When I stopped needle felting, she shared with me some of her spun cotton fibers, and they're really beautiful and silky and soft, but I don't know, I just wasn't, what I made with that wasn't ever something that I just wasn't as comfortable with it. And everything since I've stopped needle felting, pretty much all my materials besides like glue or Mod Podge or craft paint, are things I just try to use from what I've collected or things I find at the thrift store. And I think sometimes using kind of imperfect or less than ideal materials for your art, it adds a challenge to it. They can sometimes push you to do things you wouldn't have done if your materials were perfect. So it's kind of like, I was thinking the other day, it's kind of like I took poetry classes in college, and I took one class that was about using form in poetry, which at that point was kind of out of fashion, and I'm not like up on the poetry world now. I don't know if using forms is coming back into fashion a little bit more. Forms is in like, a sonnet or a pantoum or something that's got specific rules about meter or how many lines or and so that was our challenge in that class, was to write poetry in form. And obviously there's a reason that artists have used form and different rules like that over the years, and I think it's because if there are no restrictions, if everything is available, sometimes that's too broad and it's not challenging. And so things, if in a poem, you know, if you only have a certain number of syllables and 14 lines to say it, you might end up saying it differently than you would if someone just said, well, just, you know, write me you can write as many pages as you want, and you can, you know, it's too broad. And so I think sometimes other art is the same way. Like if you, there's the little hen, I hope I'm not at the end of this clip, but if you just have all the freedom in the world, maybe you don't get as creative as you do when you have some restrictions and some things, some limitations, I should say. You know, your cotton is a little lumpier than you'd like it to be, or I don't know, you don't have, you can't buy new materials or new paint, so you think of different ways to do something. So I've got here, I don't know if that makes sense, that was kind of a tangent, but that's kind of why I like to challenge myself to use things that I have already. Okay, so I got way off topic there and really didn't talk to you very much about what I was doing as far as the process and doing the layers of spun cotton, but you watched me do a first layer on that hen, and on these hens I basically just did one full layer to start, and then they really, most of them didn't need a whole lot more. I might have put in a little bit extra over the wing area, and then also worked at shaping up the face. If I put in like a beak and a little comb and wattle or whatever, I might have come back and done that after that initial first coat of cotton was dry. But if you don't want to like do that much sculpting, and you don't really feel like your skills are, you know, good enough for that, you can just kind of do a really basic shape and then come back in with felt or fabric or a little pipe cleaner beak and do the features of the face that way. I ended up painting on most of my faces and sculpting a little face for them, but like the hen I showed at the very beginning just had her comb and wattle was red fabric, and then her beak was just a little piece of pipe cleaner hot glued on and painted. So, and then as you're watching here, I'm just poking holes with my darning needle and adding wire or paper clip or twist tie for a small little hanger, and then later you can add your string or yarn or ribbon or a piece of fabric, however you want to finish off the hangers for your ornaments. So I'm just showing you different options here. But so as far as the cotton, you might need to do 2 or 3 different layers of it, and people suggested, one person said she dried hers faster in the oven, like turned it on for a little bit and let it get just a little warm and then set them in there. I put mine over a heating vent, and someone else suggested if you have a food dehydrator, you can use that. So those are all options for speeding up the drying process. And then here I'm kind of, these hens took quite a bit of thinking for me to decide how I wanted to finish them off. And finish them off sounds like I'm killing them. Kind of decorate them to, you know, how I wanted them to end up. So I normally would probably take longer than what I took. I wanted to get all of this done this week, shooting the film for this, so I kind of had to make decisions faster than what I normally would. But I wanted to show you a good variety of different things that you could do. Here I decided to give this little hen some fabric wings, and so I'm using some muslin from an antique sofa that we deconstructed. The muslin was inside there with a whole bunch of other stuff, and I got a lot of good materials out of that old couch. I didn't even realize it was old when when we had it, and then when we started taking it apart, I was like, oh man, I should have taken better care of this. This was an antique. But I'm using all the parts of it, so it's still going to good use. So here I just put on some of my school glue, then kind of scrunched up that little piece of muslin, and then I covered the front of it with a little bit of spun cotton just to adhere it a little better. But it would probably have been fine with just the school glue, and you wouldn't necessarily have to cover it with more spun cotton. You could also hot glue it, but you need to be a little careful when you're doing the painting later that you don't get that too wet, because hot glue really doesn't stick well once it's wet, so you might have your wing fall off if you get it too wet and you've used hot glue for your wing. So that's why I would probably use just the school glue to stick your wings on. And then on this little hen, I've actually got some little bits of antique lace off of a hanky that I put on her wing area kind of as an accent. You can't really see it here, but you'll be able to see it later when I show them finished. And I'm just thinking about whether I'm going to do fabric for a comb. Just kind of look at your little bits and bobs and pieces of junk that you keep around and think about how you might use some of those little tiny pieces of things that you haven't been able to use someplace else. And then this is my little figurine one that has the cardboard base, and there are different ways you can finish your base. You can just cover it in spun cotton. You can paper mache around it, which is what I've done in the past, because I always like to have little words and bits sticking out, and you can put a little name for your hen down there. But today I'm using some old fabric that I have, and I'm just painting on my glue and water mixture and just sculpting that fabric around my base. And it's pretty simple and easy to do, especially if you've got really old soft fabric that isn't very stiff and that the fibers are pretty loose on. It's easy to sculpt that into shape, and it dries and is really hard and nice. I've actually been experimenting with sculpting with that muslin fabric that we found in the old couch. So that's why I'm doing this base with fabric. I just thought, oh, that'd be kind of pretty. And then you could, call your little hen Flora or Rose or something like that. Something whimsical. So I'm just going to paint that on, and when it dries, it'll be stuck down really well. You could, I'm pretty sure you could just hot glue it around too if you wanted to. Hot glue will do just about anything, anything you need it to do. So there she is. And we'll just have to wait for a few things to dry, and then we're almost ready for the painting. So be thinking about what kinds of patterns and colors of hens you might want to paint. I mostly did speckled this time because I just can't resist a speckled hen. So there's little Rose or Flora or whoever she's going to be. Okay, time to paint. So here's one of our little hens. This is one that I had actually cut the head off of and flipped it around. I was looking at all these that I did with my little template because I was trying to be good, and I decided I was bored of all of them looking the same way, so I cut her head off and flipped it around so she was looking over her shoulder. And I have kind of a little surprise planned for that hen, of what she's looking at. So I'm just getting out some of my acrylic craft paints, and I'll just mix up some white and a little off-white and water it down quite a bit and just start covering her with a enough to cover sort of she's made out of cotton balls. I don't like that really bright white color of the cotton balls, so I just want to cover all that up. I did try to think, what could someone do if they didn't have craft paint? Could they just leave the natural color of the cotton? And I think you could. And you could just even make a spotted hen with a permanent marker. You could add the spots, and if you had a little coffee or tea, you could try doing a little coffee or tea stain to age it a little bit, and you might be able to get away with not really having any paint on hand. You might just be able to do it with a marker or a pen. So who knows? I'm always surprised what people come up with. So anyway, but here I'm going to use a thin layer of my craft paint, enough to cover and give it kind of a uniform coat, but also thin enough and watery enough that I still can see the fibers of the cotton through it. That's just my own preference. You could do several coats of paint and really give it a really hard finish, and it would look, especially if you are more painstaking than I am and make your shape smoother and less lumpy, it might end up looking more like a ceramic type thing or clay. So it just depends on what effect you're going for, but like I've said before, I just kind of like mine to look a little softer. So we're just gonna get her coated. And you could do, like I said in the strawberry tutorial or make along, I use watercolor paints sometimes. Obviously, you can't use watercolor for white, but I do use watercolor for a little black hen after this one. And I like trying the watercolor. It doesn't work sometimes if you've got too much glue mixed in with your cotton and water. If your glue ratio is too high, that watercolor isn't going to be able to go through that glue to permeate it and absorb. So that might be an issue if you have tried watercolor and it didn't work, or if you do try watercolor and it doesn't work, it's probably because you've got too much glue that's just preventing it from going in. But if you try watercolor and it doesn't work, the worst thing that happens is you just have to get a little acrylic craft paint and you just go over it with that, which is actually what I end up doing here. I started with a mix of coffee and black watercolor because I didn't want it to be like true black. I wanted it to be a little more transparent and a little more browny black, and it was fine. But what ended up happening that I had to paint over it was that once I added the speckles, I didn't really like how I did the speckles on this hen, and so I was like looking for a way to jazz her up a little bit and just like her better. And I ended up painting on some crushed mica, which I showed at the beginning. It's just crushed mica flakes that are like ground into powder, so it's just kind of this gold powder type stuff. And I thought, well, I had put it on another little hen, a watercolor hen that I made, and it looked pretty nice, a little brown hen. I had added it as an accent on her wings and tail, and anyway, so I thought I'll just put some of that on this little speckle hen and see if she looks better. Well, she didn't look better. She looked worser. So it was like, I'm just gonna start over. Even though I'd spent a long time putting on speckles, I just went ahead and started over with her and painted my acrylic paint over the top. And so here's Here's one of the speckled hens I did. This is one of those more kind of primitive shapes that looks a little bit like the cookie cutter. So this one is based on I did quite a few image searches for different hens that I like to make hens like we have here, but I also thought I would do a few different kinds of speckled ones because I make that light Sussex hen a lot, which is one of my favorite types of hens. It's the one that has the black it's white body, and then it has black speckles around its neck, and it will have some black tail feathers, and then maybe just a few little black wing feathers, and that's called a light Sussex. Or there's also a Brahma hen or Brahma chicken breed, which has really similar markings to that. They just have a few differences like foot color, and also like their under feathers are different colors. Not that we need to go into any specifics of chicken breeds, but just weird things that you learn. So anyway, this is just, I don't remember what this breed is that I'm trying to mimic here, but it was a beautiful black and white speckled hen that started out, like just a few speckles along the neck, and then it just gets thicker and thicker and more spots and speckles until like there's a band around its middle and wings that's just like almost completely black because there's so many speckles, and then it kind of fades out again towards the tail and gets more white. And I just thought that was a beautiful hen, so I'm kind of trying to do my version of that with this hen. And it took a long time, and I did, I think, maybe 5 or 6 speckled hens yesterday, and my eyes were just shot. But I mean, I'm sure it's worth it because speckled hens are awesome. So I'll kind of, I'm pretty sure I stop the video here and come back when she's mostly done, and I will show you just putting on her face. So yeah, I mean, speckled hens are tedious, but I feel like they're kind of worth the effort. And the other thing is, just like with the strawberries, you don't have to do as many speckles as I do or as a real hen would have. You can just do a few little polka dots, and that will get the idea across just as well. And sometimes that looks really awesome. Like, I some people did strawberries and they just had just a couple little dots on them, and they look super cute. And I thought, well, why am I burning my eyes out doing 10,000 seeds when I could just do like 10? So don't kill yourself unless you really feel like it. Okay, so now we're gonna do some like warp speed painting, but even sped up like maybe 3 times. I'm kind of slow here with this face. But anyway, we got all her speckles done, and I'm adding her comb and wattle. And then we'll do a little ear, a red ear spot, and then I'll add an eye. And sometimes in fact, on most of these hens, the eyes didn't go great the first time. Sometimes I wipe them off, sometimes I have to paint over them and try again. Hens are kind of difficult for me. I mean, you can just do like, a little black spot, and that can be it. But if you're trying to do anything more detailed than that, their eyes are very tiny, and so then you have to decide, well, am I going to do it like a real hen's eye and make it yellow with a black pupil and add a little sparkle to it? Or am I, if it's a black hen, how do I make her eyes stand out? Am I going to do a white outline? So I don't know. Those are things I think about, but you can just not worry about it so much and just put a black speck if you want to, or black with a little white dot. But there she is. And then I'm gonna do this one. I found a really cool it said it was a rare breed called. I don't know. I didn't actually look up how you're supposed to pronounce this because I'm not sure what language it comes from. But it's looks like Lockenfelter or Lakenfelter, Felder. I don't know if that's German or Dutch, or I have no idea. I may be way off. It could be anything. I'm not up on any languages really, besides English. So, and that's probably not as good as it could be. So anyway, Lockenfelder, they have a black head and then like speckled black tail and black specks on their wings, and then they have like sometimes little like black freckles kind of scattered throughout their body, like their white feathers on their body. So I just thought they were beautiful. So that's what I'm trying to mimic with this one. Just a pure black head, and then the little black accents on the tail and wings, and then some little speckles or freckles just around. And what I end up, she looks really like, she's so crisp white in this clip because she still was at that point. I did a pretty bright white for her body. But what I usually end up doing once I'm done with the painting is mucking everything up a little bit with coffee so that they just don't look so crisp and clean and perfect. And so that's a good reason. If you're into having something look kind of aged and not perfect, remind yourself of that while you're painting, because there's no reason to sweat little things like, one of your speckles being more of a blob, or something like that, or just other, sometimes I get a little bit too much water on my brush and my speckles bleed. I just wouldn't worry about it too much if you're going for, if you're into this craft because you like old things. Those kinds of imperfections just look like things that might have happened with time, or make it look more folksy, or whatever it is you like about old stuff. So anyway, I usually smear mine up with coffee so they're dingy and smeary and imperfect. So try not to get hung up on, on things not being just right, because I don't think most of us are actually really into perfect things. I don't really think there's anything very interesting about something that's perfect. So, I guess I'm just really into moralizing today. I don't know. Anyway, here goes her comb and her wattle. And again, like, if you did a very simple shape and you didn't sculpt in a comb and wattle with cotton, just paint the little black head and then come back in with your fabric or felt or whatever it is you're going to use. And that's simple too. So there's our Lockenfelter, and I'm gonna, since she has black feathers on her head, I have to use a little bit of white to make that eye show up. I'm never sure if I do the eyes on chickens really very well. Sometimes they look a little googly, but so there we're adding a little pupil. And I think she's just about done. Yeah. Okay, time for our finishing touches. So this is that little hen that has the lace accents on her wings, and what I decided to do with her was just do a very, very thin coat of my acrylic craft paint. So thin that you can still kind of see through and see, because I used my old quilt batting with her, you can see the little bits of plant matter that were in that cotton. I wanted to be able to see that in this particular hen, and then we've got the little bits of lace on her wings, and then I'm just doing a thin coating of my Mod Podge on her, just her top of her back and head and tail. And then I'm going to sprinkle her with my mica flakes. And I just think that's really pretty. Especially if you've got something pretty simple, it's just a way to make it a little more special and set it off. So I just sprinkle those on, and you can do the same thing with glitter if you have glitter and want to use that. And then I just pat them down a little bit, and that's it. And I did her comb and face with just watercolor. I just wanted her to be really, the colors on her to be really subtle. And so I think that she's the only one that I finished with mica, but I'll come back and show you each hen individually and tell you how I did them. So there she is, and I'll come back and show you how she turned out at the very end. So I'm just going to show you how each one turned out here. This is that little black hen that I had watercolored, and then I was going to add speckles to, and I did, but I had to end up painting acrylic paint over her, and I thought it kind of ended up looking neat. You can't see very well, but she has kind of the outlines of feathers because the white showed through. And I just added a little piece of fabric for a shawl. This one was also done in watercolor, and then I added that crushed mica as an accent on her a few places. I think she's kind of sweet, and she ended up, the watercolor worked well on her, and with that, using that color and then the gold for an accent, and then I just used a little piece of a sugar sack for her hanger. This is our little figurine, Flora. She's kind of, her colors and markings are kind of based off of a little Easter egg or chicken that we have here at the sanctuary. Her name's Sylvia, but I'm trying to get the camera to focus on her face here, and I can't get her there. You can kind of see her face a little more clearly. So that's little Flora. And then here's the original one I made. She's got she's just a very simple shape. I didn't sculpt any face with the spun cotton. I just made the shape of my template. And then I glued on a pipe cleaner for her beak and fabric for her comb and wattle. And she's that light Sussex marking, which is pretty easy to do and one of my favorites. We have 2 Sussex hens here at the sanctuary. This is kind of my interpretation of a barred rock or Dominique hen. They're actually more like ripply with their feathers, but she's polka dotted, which I think is kind of fun. I just think that looks really, reminds me of folk art when you see that black hen with the white polka dots. So that was our barred rock. Here is, this one turned into, the one with the lace wings, she turned into Queenie. A lot of people who keep hens, I think, have a Queenie, usually the top of the pecking order, and you might call her Queenie. So she needed a little lace crown, and I had a little piece of ribbon that someone sent me with a gift, so that ribbon fit well with her sparkly gold royal style. And then I think this one is actually maybe my favorite from this batch. She's a Sussex, light Sussex hen, like our abalone and fern. I just like her posture. I like the softness of her cloth wings with, I used my favorite muslin fabric to give her those little wings. I don't know. There's just, maybe it was how her face turned out. Sometimes it's things that you don't really have any control over, that just make you like something, not something you can really put your finger on. And she's got a little sugar sack hanger, a little strip of a sugar sack. This was that really fancy speckly one, and Like I said, she's imperfect. There's quite a bit of bleeding on some of her speckles, but I don't really care that much. I still love the pattern of her feathers. I thought her face turned out kind of sweet. So that's how that little speckly one turned out. I don't have a name for her yet, but she was definitely worth losing my eyesight over. And then this is my grand finale. Here's our Lockenvelder hen with 2 little chicks on her back. When I was looking for images, I came across something like this, and I just thought it was so sweet. So that's what inspired me to chop her head off and put it on looking backwards. And I made a couple little chicks out of cotton, which is very simple to do. I know you can do it. And they are hot glued to her back. So I haven't made a mom and babies of any kind of animal for quite a while, so that was fun. And I don't know, so this was fun, and I hope you had fun too. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you're inspired to try some of these things yourself. I hope you make something that brings you a lot of joy, and I'll see you next time. Happy making!